Okay, so we're going to work on aligning and placing the facial features now. So, as I mentioned in the earlier lesson, the eyes generally, and I always say generally because people have different shaped heads, different sized heads, and not everybody has exactly, the same ideal proportions, okay? Some people will have eyes that are closer together, some will have eyes that are further apart, bigger mouths, smaller mouths, bigger noses, smaller noses, but generally speaking, this is what we're aiming for. So the eyes will sit halfway. So that's where the eyes go, okay? Let's try and neaten that up for you a bit, shall we? The nose will go halfway between the next section. Excuse my messy handwriting. And then the mouth will go halfway between the next section. Okay, pretty simple. Now, the next thing that we need to take into consideration is the ear. Now, the ear, generally, the top of the ear is about the brow line, which is just above the eyes here. And the bottom of the ear is roughly where the nose is. Okay, pretty easy. So if you can keep that in mind, keep these proportions. So eyes at halfway, nose at the next halfway, mouth roughly at the next halfway, then you should be able to structure it pretty accurately. So the same thing would be for a head that is in all the other views. Let's quickly do a so halfway would be my eyes, halfway be my nose, halfway would be my mouth. The ear would be the brow, which is just above the eye level, to the ear, to the bottom of the nose there for the ear. Okay? Pretty easy. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to need to do, and I'm just going to, let's move this guy up here. And I'm just going to steal this dude. We'll use this guy again. We don't want to cut him, we just want to copy him. Alright, so the placement of the facial features along here. So the eyes are generally spaced evenly across the face. What I mean by that is generally if we do an eye, so this will generally be the same. So this will be the same as this, which will be the same as the other eye here. So the space in between the eyes is roughly equivalent to an eye. Okay? So this part here equals the same length as that. And then the nose is roughly the same width as the space in between the eyes, roughly, depending on the person. Okay, if you have a big nose, it'll be different, but generally speaking, if we draw a line straight down here, this would be the width of our nose. Okay, and the mouth, again, generally speaking, if you draw a line down from the center of the eyes, you're going to get the corners of the mouth. Okay? Now, you do need to consider that this is in three-dimensional space. So the eye wraps around the head. Okay? So if we have our head and it's looking up, the eye is going to curve around that head there. Okay? So this is what we're going to get. Now, keeping that in mind, these still line up. Okay, all of these marks still line up. But it is definitely important for you to remember and keep in mind that the head curves and everything that's on the head needs to curve with it. Okay? So let's draw a side-on head now. So let's save ourselves some time. Try and get this guy roughly the same size, shall we? Okay. So, keeping in mind that our head curves, the eye is going to be sat back in the head a bit. So the easiest thing to do would be, let's stick the nose out. So that's where the nose is going to be. We're going to bring the eye back here. And we're just going to put the end of the eye there. Okay? So this needs to match up there. And then the mouth needs to match up. Sorry, here I go, giving you guys the wrong information. The eye needs to be back. You can't, it's going to be tricky to match this up here. So let's draw an eye. So this is what the eye looks like side on, okay? The mouth needs to come in roughly. So it would be with the center of the eye on the front, but on the side view, it's going to be slightly behind the center. Or rather, it's going to be in the center of the eye, but it's center sideways as opposed to front on. So it's not going to be touching the front of the eye. This is where it gets tricky, because you're drawing this line from the front of the eye here down to there. So you're thinking, oh, if I draw this line from the front of the eye down to here, that's where the mouth's going to be. And as you can see, if I do this, that's not going to look right. Okay, so you need to remember that it curves, and with it curving, the mouth is going to come further back here, like so. Okay? And again, you would think that because it curves, this corner of the eye is slightly further in. And so you would imagine that the nose would have to be out here. But it's not, okay? It matches up just pretty much with the front of the eye. Sometimes the eye can even, depending on the person, be back a little bit like this. So that, see, the nose is slightly in front of it there. Okay? So it's very important that you need to, as I said, remember that the face curves. But, okay, as a rule of thumb, sorry, simplify this for you guys. This is where the brow is. This is the nose here. The eye needs to be in from the side of the face. It cannot be touching, can't be touching the side of the face, okay? From a side view, it has to be in, okay? You have to leave room for the nose as well, and then bring the mouth back to roughly halfway again, okay? Pretty simple, pretty easy. All right. So let's draw a couple of these in space now. So this is my ear. Just so you know, I'm drawing an ear here. I'm not drawing that cutout bit. I could draw that cutout bit, but like I said, sometimes I just simplify it. So this is my ear. Getting to specifics of how to draw this stuff later. For now, I'm just chucking it in. So halfway down would be where my nose goes. Then my mouth would go there. Line that up there for my eye. And of course the mouth would finish halfway through the eye there. Now, obviously as the head turns, so the head's turning this way, the stuff on this side is going to get a little shorter. Or it's going to appear to get shorter because it wraps around the head, and when you turn it, you're going to be able to see less of it. Okay? And again, this is also one of the reasons why it's important to remember that it wraps around the head. Okay? Alright. Oops. Don't want to move that around. Okay, so this is the basic proportions that you need to remember. I'll just move this down here so you can see it a bit better. Halfway for the eyes, and then halfway again for the nose, then halfway again for the mouth. The ears are from the brow to the bottom of the nose. Then the placement of the features. There's an eye length in between the eyes. Generally, remember it could be closer or further. The nose, the edges of the nose match up with the corners of the eyes, and the corners of the mouth match up with the center of the eyes. One other small note is generally the eyebrows. So if I was to draw the nose here, the eyebrows match up with where the wing of the nose connects in here. But we'll get onto that in our next lesson when we go over drawing the features.